Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we're going to be talking about the Emerald color in the Lorcana card game. It's one that I've been playing a lot more recently as we've been going more and more into this meta, especially since it is a little bit more on the budget side. I feel a lot of these cards are pretty reasonably priced and maybe a little bit underpriced for what they are. So we're going to talk about some of the staple cards I think in the color right now, and then we're going to have three different deck lists. One is just pretty viable and moderately, kind of budget in my mind. One that can be a little bit more expensive if you want to go for it, and then kind of also an experimental deck, which is pretty budget and can also be extended more if you want to spend some more money on some of these cards. So we're going to jump on into it. And also, I do some testing for these cards and decks on my live stream, which is linked in the description. If you guys want to check that out, let me, just click the link. It will be the one that I have linked in the description is the one that I did do some Emerald testing earlier this week, and I recommend testing it out. I had a good time, and I honestly think there's some really good combos. And just this is a really obnoxious color, which is why I like it. There's a lot of ways that your opponent just has to make some like rough decisions and just kind of have some tough choices, which usually I like forcing them into that. And sometimes you just win on board, which is really great. So talking about the first couple cards in this, the staples that I've been been using a lot and finding a lot of value from. First is Flynn Rider. This card's, I think, really good. I don't think anyone really needs to be told about this. It's a great card for two. It is a 1/2, but the fact that you get to lore for two with this card, and that if your opponent tries to get rid of this, they have to discard a card, which card economy I think in the early game is really important, especially since the cards in your hand represent your the cards that you get to ink, and especially since you can't ink everything. I think that is just a really good card to do early game, kind of get some pressure on your opponent, which is really nice. And I think that's really solid. So early Flynn Rider I think is really strong, and then also Cheshire Cat, which is kind of like the same thing. It's two lore. It's a 3 cost, and it being 3 is important for some of the colors we deal with. But being able to use this to banish the challenging character when this is challenged and banished. So you just kind of use this to get 2 lore pretty easily. Your opponent's going to have a hard time getting rid of it, which is nice. And just the fact that it does have 3 health means that they can smash it if you're playing in steel, but a lot of other colors might have a hard time with it. So I do like that there. And then also, just as we're rounding up the low end, Jasper is really strong. This is a really strong card, which I think a lot of people kind of overlook. The fact that it's a 2/4 means it's very difficult to get rid of. The fact that you can't, you can make it so some cards can't quest, which also means that there are some cards in this game that depend on questing to use their effects, and so preventing them from doing that is really great. And then that just means that they have to attack into something, which means that they have to lose health. And again, if they have to attack into something, that means that they have like your Flynn Rider and your Cheshire Cat, which is very, you want your opponent to attack in these anyways. So I think this is just a great card. And sometimes I do just kind of win the game because I'm able to use this, prevent my opponent from questing to get that last little bit, and that's kind of important. So I do like that there. And then Hans, which I thought this was just okay card. This is pretty good for what it is. Sometimes you don't have time for it, but the fact that it's a 3/3, you pay for 4, and then you get 3 lore if you quest with it. Again, like this is you will find that Emerald has a lot of ways to gain a lot of lore very quickly, and so by using a card like this, I think it's easy. Like it's just a generically good card, and you guys already know that vanillas in this game can be surprisingly good in the right circumstances, and I think this is a well statted card, maybe even above statted card for the color and just the set in general. So. And then you guys probably know about this card. This is probably the card that people know about the most in green. I originally saw this card, and I again thought this was like a little bit costly for what it was. I mean, like it's a 2/4, and it only gets 3, but the ward for this card is fantastic. Like it is very difficult to get rid of this card a lot of the time. Usually if your opponent does try to get rid of it, it's in your favor anyways, and it just means you still get to lord for 3. And sometimes you just play this out, and your opponent just doesn't have an answer for it, and you win the next turn. Like if you're at 17, you play a Cusco down, you probably win unless they have a, be prepared. Like that's literally the only thing that deals with it. Are like 2 grab your swords, right? Because those don't target, or some like Tinkerbell combo. Whatever it is, like they have to spend a lot of resources to get rid of this, and again, that's usually in your favor. So really strong. Obviously you can't ink it, but that's fine because you want to be playing it anyways, and very strong card. And then we have the Genie, another non-inkable card, but this gets so much tempo for you that you're usually okay. The fact that it has evasive means that you will be in scenarios where you just play Genie, bounce something back into their hand. You get to, quest with it next turn. They still won't be able to attack into it either. So this is a super rare. It's only, at least on TCG Player, it's $5. So I think this is a moderately cheap card for a super rare right now too, that I think is in a good color to use it. So again, the tempo you get from this is fantastic. You don't get rid of the card, you just kind of pump it back to their hand. So it's the easiest form of removal. It still gives your opponent some card advantage, but if they played something with the wanting to quest with it or attack with it the next turn, this really kind of fixes it for you. And the fact that it does have the it has evasive in itself, and being able to quest for 2 the next turn, I think is really, really good. So it's helpful in a lot of situations and very strong for you. And then our last character card we're going to talk about, John Silver. I think this card is cheap for what it is. It is a legendary, which most of the legendaries cost $20-$30 more, and this one only costs about $10 right now. So I think this is definitely one that you can look into and consider buying if you're interested in green, at least right now, because again, it is really cheap. It's a 5/5 with 2 lore. You pay it for 6, and it is inkable, which is nice. And pick your fight. So when you play this character, and whenever he quests, chosen opposing character gains reckless during their next turn, and they can't quest and must challenge. So there's a lot of scenarios where you can use this. Like, you normally play this deck and you're really tight in numbers, in the fact that most of the time you win, and if you didn't win this turn, your opponent won the next turn, right? But being able to use this to say, all right, I'm going to quest for, play this card. The card that they wanted to quest with next turn, they can't quest with anymore, and even worse, they have to attack with it. So depending on board states, let's say we have a Cusco, we play Cusco on 5, we quest with Cusco, so you can attack into it, and then you play John Silver. It just means that you get in a really tricky spot where, like, you have to attack into Cusco, which means that you get to remove something if they only have like one card, if they don't have any other way to remove the Cusco. So that's really great. And it's when you quest with this card too, which means that you can then quest with it next turn. It can get a double stun very easily on something your opponent wants to quest with, like a bell or something, and then you can play another card on top of it. So I think this is a very underrated card right now, and pretty cheap. If you I rarely say to buy cards, but I think this is definitely a card you can afford to get, and it might go up in price in the next couple of weeks. So that's my thoughts on this one, but I think this is a very solid card for green in general. So last card I want to talk about is Mother's Knows Best. This is a very good song for you. The fact that you're able to use it, and it's just the Genie's effect, but being able to say, all right, well, I previously played like a Jasper, and it's still around, so I can use Jasper for free to bounce something back into your hand, and I can now quest with my Cusco and not really feel worried about it, or like the Hans I played last turn. And the fact that it has no cost anything about it, it's just anything back to hand, it's very, very solid. So this is definitely something you have to play around as well. Obviously, if you bounce something in hand, it doesn't get rid of it forever, but the tempo you gain from this is very strong too. So those are kind of the key cards I want to talk about in general. And then again, we have 3 decks we want to start talking about for this video specifically, and all these deck lists are linked on my profile, which is linked in the description of this video too. So first up, we're going to talk about this Amethyst and Emerald deck, and this is really based off of Ryan Miles' list from the PPG event, which is also on this profile right here. So you're going to see a lot of similarities for this one. The big differences for this one in general is that I do like John Silver, so I did put it to 3 copies and kind of changed the befuddle there. I also put a 3rd copy of Rafiki in this build too. I think the removal for Rafiki is great, but I also just kind of wanted another 3 cost. They ran some Peter Pans, which this can be great as just a card that you play early as well, and then you can use it for just having like a constant source of Mother Knows Best, our friends on the other side, and you get to just keep doing it, and it has evasive. So I think some matchups, the 2 health is really rough for you because like grab your sword is so prevalent. So the fact that it's 2 health is a little bit concerning because of that too, but I don't think it's that bad. So that's something to consider, but I didn't like it for my build, so I took it out. I have these cards here. Again, Tinkerbell is really great for the same thing as being something evasive, and we really want to kind of have a bunch of 3 costs because these are the cards that are kind of important for, again, getting some free values off friends on the other side or Mothers Know Best, and having just card draw in green is fantastic. because specifically like mostly we go like one for ones for a lot of our trades and stuff. So being able to get some card advantage is really great, especially if they have to like have card disadvantage by the Flynn Rider. And if they want to draw cards, it usually means they have to lose tempo to do so. And if they lose tempo, we get to use like our Hans or our Cusco and get a lot of lore and like really put the pedal to the metal on that. So, but other than that, I think it's great. I do like Rafiki though a little bit more, just because this can trade favorably into something, and then after that, you can lore with it. It has 3 health, which is great, so it can survive pretty consistently. And I do like that ad there. So this is the list for the for the Amethyst and Emerald. It's under $200, by the way, USD, which is pretty fair-ish for a competitive Lorcana deck, and I think their version is about the same. Yeah, so Ryan's list is really similar. I mean, again, these are very similar lists, and if you don't have like Cusco or something, or if you can kind of, I don't know, the base package itself is really, really cheap, and like the upper end is even pretty cheap too, but you don't have to do too much for it. I think I added another Befuddle as well because I do like this card in the right circumstances, and it can win you the game if your opponent needs one more lore kind of stuff. But it's also really easy to put into our inkwell. So, anyways, this is the list here for the the Amethyst and Emerald, and we're going to the Amber and Emerald. With this one's a little chunkier in the cost. A lot of it kind of has to do with the fact that Rapunzel, a playset of this, is like $200 right now, which is, again, this is a legendary, and it costs $50. Meanwhile, John Silver is a legendary, only cost $10. So I think that's a bit of a disparity there. But this is a little bit closer to kind of like the hand control version I had as well. I kind of made it more of like a Stitch deck as well. So we don't have as much of the I usually run like the Ariel, and we can use the Ariel to like draw cards, and then also use like you have forgotten me to make your opponent discard cards, and kind of have that. I also had like the Corella Deville song in there too, and I'm still kind of working on this build, but this one's more focusing on just the fact that Stitch can get you a lot of card draw and kind of even out the game later on. So especially with Simba is like a really solid card, I think, for this, because I mean everyone knows you play Lilo turn 1, you quest with it, you play Simba, congratulations, you got like 4 lore immediately. That's very good for you. So I think that's good. Again, and kind of like a lot of the same upper end. The differences are like the Rapunzels, which if you don't have these, I think you're fine to play this deck, but it is something that can help you get that card draw, which is really nice. We also have the Hades, Lord of the Underworld, which this is a card with no counter, but just the fact that it does draw you a card from your from your discard pile, and then it can be a card that you can ink with it, which means like you're fine with it. So it too is just kind of a sweet spot. I do like this card a lot. If you're playing against something that's really aggressive and you need to make them discard cards, this is such a good spot for you. So I do like that. And also Jasper or Cheshire Cat with Rapunzel is great too. Both these having really high health is good for you, and also there can be some times where you trade with Simba and then you play in Rapunzel, heal it, and then you get to draw 2, which is good. So all of that I think is solid for you. And the only thing is that I feel like we draw a lot of cards, but we don't have a lot of uses for the cards we draw sometimes. So that is kind of the only thing I'm missing, because you do have you have tempo a lot of the time with this deck, but you don't have like the really, really high end to really capitalize on it at times. But I don't think that's necessarily bad. Just kind of something I've seen from this one. But that is this deck here, and I do like. I don't know. I will figure out this deck the way I like it. I think this is a solid build, and I do like the idea of Stitch to help you get there, and you can get to like your a higher end and get some more like lore immediately, which if you play the Stitch, but. I don't know. I think there's something here with this one too. So there's this one, and then lastly, this one's really budget and really, well, not really budget, but more experimental. It is ironically more expensive than this one, but this is a deck that you can make more expensive as well if you want to with some of the expensive red cards. But this is just kind of like an idea based off like the Aladdins as well, and kind of the archetypes with it. Because I mean, like this has Ward, which is really great, which means it's hard to remove. Unfortunately, you only have 2 health, so grab your sword can get rid of this Aladdin if you're not careful. But just the fact that you can have something that's moderately safe, and then you're able to go into your big 7-cost Aladdin, which is good there. And then if you had like a 7-cost song for some reason, you could definitely sing it with Aladdin to clear their board. But being able to use this is It's only a 5/5, but being able to use this to gain 2 lore and make your opponent lose 2 lore helps you on your tempo swing. Being able to play again Cusco, Tinkerbell, all your kind of pieces that you like. Maui is kind of pretty good. The fact that he has a lot of potential for removal is good, especially if you have the Shield of Virtue, which this card I still jumble between if this is good or bad. I've decided it's good right now, but there are some kind of good things you can do with it, and specifically like when you have these cards with ward, if you use Cusco and then you attack with Cusco or you quest with Cusco and then you use the Shield of Virtue, your opponent really doesn't have an answer to it. They have to be like, oh well, I just took 3, and I'm going to continue to take 3 until that doesn't happen anymore, which is kind of nice. So I think that's something that's added for the deck for you there. I do also like the Stolen Scimitar, being able to give something +1, R+2 if you're Aladdin is pretty nice, especially like this Minnie Mouse. We can make this a 2/3 for by using it and get some really good trades early game, which helps that momentum. So I think that's good. You just have to play it for 2, so you could have the mini out. They can have like a Simba, right? And then you just play the Scimitar, attack with Minnie Mouse. It's a 3/3 on their 2/3, and so you live, and then you can get rid of their Lilo the next turn. And I think it's a nice little combo. So maybe I'll start bumping this up a little bit more, but I think it's something that has some potential for it. So anyways, and then I did think about playing like the big Shift Genie. I ended up not doing it because you could go into Dragonfire with it, which seems kind of nice, but I don't know. I think, again, there's something for this deck, too. The only issue with it is that there's literally no card draw, and that's pretty rough. That can be pretty rough for a deck like this in this current meta. So do have to watch out for that a little bit, but I do think there's something here for this one. So anyways, those are my list. Again, they're going to be in the description if you guys want those as well. Let me know if there's any other decks or anything else you want me to test for this one. Also, if you want me to make like a tier list video, I think I might do one in the next week or two once we get a little bit more data and just kind of my opinions in general for it. But I've been having fun with these decks, specifically this Emerald Amethyst build. I think is really solid, or something like this. And again, it is moderately cheap for this game, and I think it's something if you want to get into a more competitive deck, this is probably like a really good starter one for a lot of people. So anyways, that's going to be it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what else you guys want for Lorcana, and that's going to be it for me. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.
Damn it. Damn it.